Things Musicians Don't Talk About is supported by the Royal Society of Musicians. Since 1738, they have been providing vital financial assistance, advice and guidance to music professionals unable to work due to accident, illness, stress or anxiety. Whether you're working as a performer, administrator, technician or teacher, and everything in between, they're there to help. If you know of someone in need, you can contact them in confidence by visiting their website, which is www.rsmgb.org, or you can contact them by ringing 020 7629 6137. Support their work by becoming a member or donating today.
Welcome back to Things Musicians Don't Talk About. Today we are joined by Louise Bennett. Hello, Louise.
Hello.
Today we are doing an episode slightly different to usual, and we are dipping our toes into the murky world of ballet. Murky or not so murky, we'll be finding out. But I've been very interested in, broadening out into arts as a whole, and especially another classical art form, just to sort of compare notes a little bit and see where the situation is, because often we know classical music's very hard, but I've often thought ballet must be so much worse. And hopefully today we're going to find out. So first of all, tell us a bit about you. How's your day going? I don't know.
Okay. My day's going great. Thank you for having me. I was just thinking when you were saying that it's so great that we're meeting, because I think classical ballet dancers and classical musicians don't meet enough, despite working in the same spaces quite often. And it's something that I was really aware of when I was dancing. You'd walk past the orchestra in the canteen and go and sit with all the dancers and not talk to the musicians. So I just think that's like a cultural thing that maybe we can get into. I am currently an artistic director of a ballet school, but in my journey leading up to that, I was a professional ballet dancer and I trained at the Royal Ballet School. And then I had a big injury and I did university. So I'm one of the few dancers who's danced professionally who has also been to university and done an academic education of that type. Usually you just go straight from school to a company, which we can also talk about. And then I came back to ballet after that. I retrained, which similarly to classical music, I think you could imagine was quite a difficult uphill struggle. But I danced with the Norwegian National Ballet and with the Royal Swedish Ballet. And then I also did a couple of contracts with English National Ballet here in London. And then I stopped when I was about 30 and I became a freelance teacher. So I had a really nice kind of freelance roster of companies that I'd go around in the UK and Europe and teach. And I got into some rehearsal directing. And I've also been a rehearsal director in Dusseldorf in the company there. I was scouted for a job in Dusseldorf, which was really, really nice. So I then went over to Germany for 2 years. And then I came back here to do my first artistic director job, which was with a company called the National Youth Ballet. And then for now 2 years, I've been the artistic director of London Vocational Ballet School, which is a full-time professional ballet school. It's a secondary school, essentially, but we're a professional ballet school, but not a boarding school. So a little bit different to my experience at the Royal Ballet School, but of course there are lots and lots of crossovers, as you can imagine.
We have so many questions because it just seems like a world that we have, so much in common with, but yet is so separate. Could you go back to that time when you got that injury? So you had been expecting to do the normal trajectory into ballet, but then decided to go off to university because of the injury.
Yes.
And how was that for you? What happened for you?
Horrible is probably the first word that I would think of. I mean, I went to the Royal Ballet School from age 11, and the kind of, when you arrive at the Royal Ballet School, you think I'm going to be here until I'm 19, and then I'm going to get into the Royal Ballet, and I'm going to be a professional ballet dancer from that point onwards. That's what, that's the kind of dream narrative. That's what all the little girls and boys and people of all genders want to do when they get into a professional ballet school. And it was very much the dream that was sold to us as the ideal dream. I did have some injuries as I was going through. Mostly I have very weak ankles, so I was mostly spraining my ankle every 5 minutes, which was horrible. But then when I was about 16, I started to notice that I had some numbness in my legs. I already knew that I had a scoliosis in my back. And from then on, over the next couple of years, it just got worse and worse and worse until I had things like I couldn't walk in a straight line. I couldn't really walk up the stairs. I had terrible pain in my back. And I was getting it seen to, but then the ultimate thing was, look, dancing's not going to happen for you when I was 18.
Were you dancing through this injury at the time as well?
I was trying to, but, you come back and then you stop again. And, it was very difficult, very changeable. So in the end, I think I just got tired. I got tired of fighting. And when I was told categorically, this is not going to happen for you, it's also my personality. I'll make a decision like quite fast and then go with it, and it'll be a big decision. And then I just said, no, I'm going to apply for university. I'm going to do that. And I did. It was a late application. I had 1 A-level. And I did a late application with like a really good personal statement about all the training I'd had and who I was. And I went off to university to do English that September. But really traumatizing, the whole thing.
I guess the main word in my head is like grief.
Massive grief.
But I guess when you have to make a decision like going to study English, did you just kind of decide to leave ballet life behind?
I felt like it was out of my control. And I felt like I couldn't, like it was too painful to stay in it and not be able to do it. I was in too much pain in my body and in my brain. And I just couldn't do it. I was too depressed.
Did you get advice from your teachers to...
It was my decision. And my teachers, actually, that's a good point. I've never thought about that actually until this moment, that I didn't really consult my teachers. Actually, it was my 18th birthday when I went to tell the director that that's what I was doing. And actually the director wasn't available. So I spoke to the deputy director who I remember just went, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Just didn't know what to say. And then I went back downstairs and I told my ballet teacher, and she said, oh, well, you need to be with us today then. And she made me watch the class.
Oh, but they must have seen you in pain and struggling to dance. So like as a teacher now, if you saw a student in that much pain, surely you'd be like, hey, like, let's talk about your options.
Yeah. I mean, it might have happened and I don't remember it. I've blocked out a lot of time.
For sure.
I feel like the decision was mine and my family.
Yeah.
I feel, again, like I have so many questions, and thank you for talking so eloquently about, like, I mean, I know injury is, horrible. We have experiences of injury, but were you kind of constantly hoping that something would change earlier on? So from when you were 16 to 18, were you kind of like...
Yeah. To leave home when you're 11 to go and do that, it's like, it's not a decision you can take lightly, to step away from it. And more then than there is now, there was a culture of kind of ballet is everything. You sacrifice everything for ballet. And thankfully that is changing now. So
when you say sacrifice everything, like what does that look like or what did it look like in a sort of day-to-day terms?
It's the kind of social life isn't really important. I think we had the idea that academic education wasn't that important. And I'm sure that the academic staff and the ballet staff probably tried to do everything they could to sway us away from that. We had this idea of like, we're going to be ballet dancers. Nothing else matters. Yeah, ballet was just kind of king over everything.
And where did you get the idea that ballet, like you have to sacrifice everything for ballet from? Was it like a more of a systemic thing that you absorbed, or?
Yeah, more systemic that we absorbed. There were also several kind of books out at the time that written by very famous ballet dancers that were quite problematic. Some of them were, I mean, any ballet dancer listening to this will know the ones I mean. Some of them were okay. Some of them were informative. Some of them were terribly toxic and had these ideas in them. And we were all reading those books.
I remember like we started talking about ballet and classical music around the same time that you sent me a photo of the Royal Ballet gift shop. And there was like a pencil case or a cushion or something that said something like ballet is life or something along those lines. And that was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, I think from my and a lot of people's vision of ballet in the media, and you know, often there's like a documentary around Christmas, isn't there, of like, and it is kind of, you know, they go to the Royal Ballet School and you know, it's a good story if you have these kids who are all they do is ballet in their life. And it's the same with the Young Musician of the Year. They do little documentaries for that, and it's the same. It's kind of like they want to know the key. How many hours of day do you practice?
What do you give up for music?
What have you given up exactly for music? What are you sacrificing here? Because it's a good story. But you're right, like you end up feeling like if I have a life outside of that, then clearly I'm not committed enough.
Yeah, any way that they can look more committed and more like they're more obsessed than the next person, you know? And again, I think that's changing now, but I know that in my year at school, those behaviours and those ways of thinking were kind of contagious.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have people getting up at 5 a.m. to jog around the garden because that would make them better. And I remember going to ask the teacher. I had a teacher that I really, really loved that I just thought was brilliant. And I went to the staff room and I said to her, should I be jogging around the garden at 5 a.m? And she said, no, the ballet class warms you up. And it just stuck with me forever. I was like, oh, okay. So even then I was kind of questioning things, which makes me feel kind of comforted now that I wasn't completely going along with the thing. But yeah, I can see those parallels between dance and music for sure.
What was the dream before your injury? Like, was it that I want to be in the Royal Ballet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we all wanted. And again, I don't know quite if this was said to us overtly, but what would happen, the facts were that, you know, so you would arrive at the Royal Ballet School, people would be assessed every year. We had an assessment every year. And then some people would be asked not to come back the following year. That doesn't happen anymore at school. So we lost 10 girls in our first year. 6 of them were assessed out and 4 left. And then that was the most at once. But, you know, we lost people every year. And then you had to do another audition to get into the upper school. Well, they would tell you whether you were going to get in, but, you know, they didn't take everyone through to the next bit of the school. And then at the end of 3 years at the upper school, they take like 2 people into the Royal Ballet. So that's the kind of pressure you're living under if the dream is the Royal Ballet. And back in those days, there wasn't really enough, again, no social media, not really internet. There wasn't enough awareness that there's a whole world out there and you could move to Germany or America or France or, you know, you could go to one of these hundreds of companies in the world. So the world is your oyster, really, but we didn't really realise that. It was like, if I don't get into the Royal Ballet, I failed. And that's it. But I think people are doing good work to undo that narrative now. And social media really helps. There's a lot wrong with social media, but at least you can go on there and you can see like, you know, oh, I could go and dance in Berlin and I'd have like a really cool life, you know?
Well, as a student, you don't have, like, social media and the internet has given a lot of younger people more agency. I know a lot of our listeners, because most of them are musicians, would be really interested in knowing what like a typical day for you looked like at ballet school.
So again, I was there in the 90s. I don't know if it's still like this, but we were all living there. So you'd have your breakfast and then they would split the day into 3 blocks, 8:30 to 10:30, 11 till 1 and 2 till 4. So I really remember the schedule very well. And in 2 of those you do academics and in 1 of those you'd have a ballet class. So the real, like the bad one was when you had the 11 o'clock ballet class. You get up, you put your academic uniform on, then you'd use your break to get changed, and then you'd use your lunch to get changed again. And then in the afternoon, after academics, there's more dancing. So from about 4:15 till 6:15, 6:45, you do things like, so the training during the day would be a technique class. So that's the thing that you always do. That never changes. And you'd have a dedicated teacher for your year group. So that is kind of like you're brushing your teeth. And then your afternoon stuff would be solos, repertoire, pas de deux, other forms of dance like contemporary. We had tap, I think that was on Saturdays. We do Scottish dancing. I think they still do that. Scottish and Irish we had, and character, so like Russian, Polish, sort of traditional, well, don't know how traditional they were, but traditional dances, or rehearsals for things, rehearsals for performances. And then you'd have dinner, and then you do an hour of homework. And then we had late night drinks at 8:15, which I don't know why it was called late night drinks. So you were 8:15.
Little Baileys before bed.
Best part of the day.
That's where you'd get like a hot chocolate from the machine and a biscuit from the box. And then you go to bed.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the day. And if you're in year 11, you'd have like a common room and you could make your own toast and things, and you'd have like certain privileges. I think we did prep in the dorms in year 11, so the homework bit. But yeah, in the dorms, again, different now. I think they have 2 people in a dorm now, but at one point we had 17. When I arrived when I was 11, I was in a dorm with 6 people. And then next door was a dorm of 12. And then there was another dorm with 6. And I was in the old chapel. So it was like not the coziest of rooms. I don't think they use it as a dorm anymore. They've built boarding houses now. Yeah, but we were all kind of like, I have a kind of fondness for how it was, because I was in the old chapel, and then there were 2, if you see a picture of the Royal Ballet School, the lower school, it's a royal hunting lodge that has 2 long crescents coming out each side. Wow. So in year 8, we were in the crescent in a long row, 17 of us. And then we were in the stable, and then we were in the attic. We had to climb like 70 stairs around a laundry chute to get into the dorms. You're also younger than me. This was like 1997.
Potentially, yeah.
I think this changed quite soon after that, but the school had been, those dorms were like, you'd see like Darcy Bustle's name on the wall, where, people were always doing like graffiti on the beds and stuff, and you'd see all these famous people, and it's kind of like the weight of history. You're walking in the same path as a legend, and I enjoyed that about it.
Yeah. Do you think there is a kind of fondness or nostalgia that kind of makes you forget the other stuff?
Yeah, you look through a lens of like, well, the people who've come before me did this, so it's amazing.
Yeah.
And there were amazing things about living in those dorms. Certainly teaches you a lot. Like, I always loved watching Big Brother, because I could like recognize every dynamic that was coming up with people living together, people who don't know each other living together, which is fascinating to me. It's nice to what about normal. White
Lodge itself? Because obviously it's very secluded. You're not getting out of there.
No.
And that's always slightly worried me, because at least with Cheetham's, where I was, we were in the middle of Manchester, so you just felt a little bit more like...
I can't say the same for my school.
Oh yeah, because you were in Wells.
Which was in the town.
But the school is kind of the town, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was in the middle of the countryside.
But if you're 11, you're not going to be let out anyway.
True.
Like, I think from the parents' perspective, it feels safer to have the kids kind of locked in.
Did you get to go to town?
We used to get £2.50 out of our bank accounts every week, and you had to sign a little form, and you get it in a little bag, and then we'd be walked down to Sheen. We'd be walked down by a teacher, and then we were allowed to go round in groups of 3 or 4. I mean, then we had to meet the teacher after a few hours and walk back to the school. We'd go to Woolworths and buy sweets. We were so innocent. And then as you get older, you are allowed to, they take you on a bus to Richmond.
Wow.
And that's like
radical.
The graduation of the, so I think year 11. And then at a certain point, again, I don't know if any of this is like this anymore, but this is what it was like for me. There was a certain point where you were allowed to go out in the park in groups of 3s. You had to be signed out and all of that stuff, but you could go into the park because it's in the middle of this huge park. So yeah, there was that. And you could go home at the weekend, but only after Saturday morning classes. So you'd have a day and a half. And my parents were actually in Wales for the first part of when I was at the school, so it wasn't the easiest to go home. And I kind of liked being there at weekends as well, because it was like, finally I can just rest.
Yeah.
Not do anything. So
yeah.
I was going to say, it's a lot of exercise, obviously, for children and young people. And obviously, everyone associates ballet with eating disorders.
Yeah.
Did you notice much of that at school? How, if you'd be comfortable talking about it, has your relationship with your body been? Just how does a school manage that? Because it was the same at my school for music. That I had an eating disorder at school, and I just don't think they really knew what to do. But also, it was sort of ingrained in the music, sort of obsessive. Everything was competitive, and it sort of just ran side by side anyway. But what was your experience of that?
Well, I'm surprised to hear that it's such a thing at music schools. I didn't know that. Yeah, because ballet is so about the body, whereas music, it feels like it should be more about...
But there's a sort of success and thinness thing, isn't there? Especially with women.
Yeah, because you're a performer.
Because you're a performer, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just haven't made that.
No, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, obviously it's a thing that can happen. And again, I think what I experienced with my year group was that once one person started thinking that way, it became contagious. So you can have entire year groups who are fine and, completely healthy. And then one person gets an idea in their head, and then the next person goes, oh yeah, maybe I should do that as well. I don't think it was managed as well then as it is now. There's much more awareness now. It's difficult because sometimes I would see at school and at someone would lose weight and then be kind of rewarded for it with a role, with a prize, with more attention, with a high assessment mark. And maybe they improved, but you'd question yourself and be like, oh, maybe I need to. Also, the uniform we had was awful. They put us in baby blue cotton leotards when we were 16.
Ooh.
And pink tights. And I have cellulite. Like, doesn't matter how thin I get, I have cellulite. And that's it. My relationship with my body was hard because of that. I always had a good shape, as it were. Like, I'm really hyperextended. I have all the components for ballet. I have really arched feet. I'm fairly tall. Like, I had all of the right things, apart from the bad back. But I didn't have hard muscle tone in my legs. So that made my relationship with my body really difficult.
And was that something kind of pointed out?
Yes, it was pointed out. Again, I don't think that would happen today, but it did happen then. And in the 2 years running up to me stopping, I started to get a really unhealthy relationship with my body. And they gave us the information, but I didn't really care about nutrition. I was like, I want to be thin. So I think this summer in between first and second year of upper school, I really didn't eat much and I went to the gym a lot. And then when I went back in September, it wasn't even the teachers, it was my friends that were like, you look great. And then 6 months later, it was like, I've got to stop because I'm in too much pain. So I really think that, yes, I had the injury, but also that summer of just like not nourishing my body was very, very hard. And then my relationship with my body was okay. Like through my dancing career, it was all right. I struggled with the cellulite thing. Like one of the last things I had to do on stage before I retired was put on like a flesh-coloured like little pair of shorts and bra top with no support. And do like movement that wasn't flattering for me. You know, it was fine choreographically, but I was like, I do not want to do this. This is, but you have to. But then as soon as I stopped and I didn't have to look in the mirror all the time, I didn't have to wear a leotard, I didn't have to be in pink tights, literally from one day to the next, I was like, I'm hot. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, I love my body.
Oh my God.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel sad?
Yeah. I wasted all that time.
What about when you were at university for English? Was it like, were you able to switch? Were you dancing? Like, what was it like then?
Yeah, I didn't dance at all. I was like, this is forever. And yeah. And I had a slightly better relationship with my body then, but I didn't notice the switch in such a kind of dramatic way then. I think because I was dealing with so much other stuff. No, I didn't dance at all. I started doing some dance writing. I started doing some reviewing. Like that feels like a good marriage of skills. So I did that. And people knew me as, trained as a ballet dancer. So I took people to ballets and kind of introduced them to ballets. And that was nice. And then actually the way I came back to ballet was, I often say like I've lived quite a lot of lives actually, because at the end of university, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And then on Guardian Jobs, there was a job at the Royal Ballet in the office. So I was like, well, I'm going to apply for that. It was artistic coordinator was the role. And of course, they all knew me because it's across the road from the upper school. They'd all I'd also done loads of choreography when I was at school. The director of the Royal Ballet had given me a prize for choreography when I was at White Lodge. There's all this connection. So I went for the job and I got it. And I did it for a year. It was really hard to do it because there were people from my class in the company, that just after a year I was like, no. But during that year, I got to know a lot of very prestigious people, a lot of really famous choreographers. I got to take part in the choreographic workshop that the Royal Ballet dancers do. I work here. Can I do this as well? So they were like, okay, I guess. So I did that. And in doing that, I started to kind of move a bit more. And I was like, oh, this feels okay. Maybe I've kind of healed a bit. And then just at the back of my mind was like, could I do this again? I left because I didn't want to be in that environment. It was just too hard. I wasn't healed from the trauma of stopping. And then I worked as an usher at the South Bank Centre for 6 months. I've heard a lot of great music at the South Bank Centre, which I would go anyway, but it was brilliant to be there and hear things all the time. During that time, I thought maybe I'm going to be a choreographer and started making work. And then I was watching some of my own work And my friend sitting next to me, as the lights came up, said, "People behind us are talking about you." And they go, "Who's Louise Bennett? Who's Louise Bennett?" And I turned around and said, "I'm Louise Bennett." And it was this incredible teacher. And he said, "What do you do? Who are you?" I said, "I don't know really. I kind of think I might like to start dancing again." And he said, "Come to my class. I help you." And I did it for a year and a half. And that's how I got back in.
Where was that?
So he was teaching open beginners classes at 7:00 in the evening at Central School of Ballet. His name's Renato Peroni. I still had technique, but I didn't have any strength.
Yeah.
And I was really, even just walking into the building, I was like, I feel so traumatized. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I turned around and went home. I didn't even get into the studio. He said, "No, come over here, stand next to me." And it was a class where most of the people there came straight from the office. They were doing it for fun, for community, for fitness. And they loved him. It's just one of these teachers that he had this hold over the group. And he had some wacky kind of ways of expressing things, put it that way. But just everything made sense. He taught me a new way of working, a way that protected my body. Loads of friends there, because I was like, this is so different to being in a class at the Royal Ballet School. We've got that like competition and that stress. Here's people who are just here because they love it. They've paid their £7 to be here, and they're just like, they just want to learn how to do it, and they love being in this environment. And I met the people that I ended up in a shared house with in London, met lots of my best friends there, and kind of like it gave me a reality check as well in some ways. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but it meant I had no ego about what I was doing, because I was just like, this is really cool. This community is amazing, and they really embraced me, and I wasn't a snob about them, you know? So it like kind of worked really, really well. And then I ended up doing Swan Lake at the Albert Hall a year and a half later, terrified. But, you know, I don't remember what the question was, but that's how I ended up moving again.
You did these classes, and then later, a year and a half later, you did Swan Lake at the Albert Hall. What were people's attitudes towards you, or maybe your own attitudes towards yourself, about coming into the industry almost from the side, like a different trajectory than your peers who had come up through the trajectory that you'd imagined you were going to have?
I think if I'd have gone straight into a full-time job at the Royal Ballet, that would have been one thing. But I was kind of in a subsect of the industry that was jobbing dancers, people that had done things in a more unusual way. So I'd sort of changed lanes in a way. Like I wasn't really, because I wasn't on the path that I started on. I'd become a completely different category of person in the industry. So I don't remember anyone kind of questioning it. I think people were impressed that I'd managed to do it, which was really, really nice.
How was your injury situation?
Yeah, it was much better. I really learned how to work with my body, and this teacher, he has a specific technique of there's in ballet, like there are lots of different ways to teach, and there's lots of different ideas about like where you put your weight and about placement and this and that and how you use the bar, especially. That's the big one with this teacher. And a lot of people find his way controversial, but actually it helped me a lot. So I was learning how to work with my body, and I also learned how to teach through relearning. So now when I teach professionals, they often come to me afterwards and say like, I don't have any pain. And this is the first class in ages I haven't had any pain, which is brilliant, because, you know, that's because of my teacher, and he now works for English National Ballet. I think the more kind of urgent thing that I think about quite a lot is that kids feel like they have to do the path and there isn't any other way. And then I think when things happen, they just give up. So there's a big emphasis on the Royal Ballet School. And I know, like, I went there, but look, I didn't do the thing. Like, I really struggled. So it doesn't necessarily mean it opens a lot of doors. Don't get me wrong. Like, the name on your CV gives you a lot of street cred in a way, but it doesn't mean you're gonna be fine. You can go many different routes and have an amazing career. But this hyper focus on the Royal Ballet School at such a young age, I see it in my own students. You know, they're so focused on that. And when it doesn't happen, the heartbreak is it's like unbelievable, you know? And it might not have even been the right place for them. Maybe they'd be much happier somewhere else, but there's such a hyper focus. And I wish that broader paths, looking forward into the future and seeing that there could be many paths, I wish that could be more accepted. Because for me, actually, I wonder who I would be if I'd gone all the way through the school and into the company, and I've been in the company for 20 years and I was about to retire and I struggled. And because I had an injury and because I just had to deal with circumstances that were kind of thrust upon me, like that, I'm glad that I had the path that I did, which doesn't mean that it's the right way. There are plenty of people who've gone into a company at 19 years old and retired at 40 and done something else and like, yeah, great, they're happy, and that's a fine way to do things, but it's not the only way.
I suppose that's the thing. It's just there is no one right way.
Yeah.
Despite what we may be told.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, you don't have to go really technical with it, but when you say this teacher or even now your style of teaching means a lot of people feel that the pain they were in or the contortion they were in is like not the same, or they're not having the same kind of pain. What is that? What does it look like?
So what I really discovered with him was just understanding the body. And in ballet, there's a lot of affectation. And he just took all affectation out and made it all functional. So I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of turnout.
Sure.
No.
Foot
Sorry.
going out. Right?
Oh, like, yeah. So turnout is just such a massive topic of discussion in the ballet world. Like, how do you find your proper turnout? How do you hold it? Do you have enough turnout? Are you going to get rejected from a school because you don't have enough turnout? So young dancers have a tendency to force it, and then they mess up their knees and ankles and hips.
Oh.
So the best way is to hold it from the top of the leg, have really strong hamstrings. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And this teacher really taught me how to work in turnout that was what my body could cope with, but that I was holding it. Lots of dancers push beyond what their body can cope with, and they don't know how to hold it. So that was like the, absolute light bulb moment for me. But what it looks like from the outside is that you might not be in flat turnout. But
does that mean like you're 90 degrees kind of thing?
Yeah, both feet at 90 degrees, so in a straight line, which is the desired kind of, that's when people say they're looking for perfection, like that's, but barely any bodies do that. If someone's standing like that, they're forcing it pretty much.
Yeah.
So I learned how to hold a bit less, but to actually hold it.
But it basically just means that you have to work with your body, how you are built, how you would naturally be, which is can be quite like an existential process to go through, to be like, am I as a person up for this?
Yeah.
Whereas I guess if you're forcing it and just trying to be like everyone else, you can sort of ignore that, or like you can't ignore it, but like you have to just come to terms with how your body is more.
Absolutely.
Which is great, obviously, but then in an industry that tells you have to be like this, that must be really hard.
And that you might really get audition panels that say you don't have enough turnout. Like it's an industry-wide shift that needs to happen, and I think is happening in a lot of places. I've had very important people watching my classes in various places saying thank you for making them stand in their natural turnout. Like it sounds in a way so silly, but if you're messing up your knees and your hips and your ankles, that is like you're not going to be able to dance. So you sacrifice so much for this like moment of aesthetic glory that you can't even hold. So once you start moving faster, you're not holding that turnout. So what's the point in the end?
What about the whole thing of like point though?
Yeah.
Because is there a way you can have natural point?
Yeah, you can be kind of like I said earlier, I have really arched feet. So the more arched the feet, the better, basically.
Because you're not straining it.
So you want, when you go up on point, you want to be kind of over the shoe. If you're restricted in your movement, you're back on the shoe, and it's much harder.
Yeah.
And also traditionally, aesthetically less pleasing. So people are looking for those really arched feet and a hyperextended leg, which makes you weaker, but is more beautiful, in inverted commas.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's like which one are you going to struggle with?
Yeah.
Or what's
exactly.
more sustainable? like for your body?
Yeah. It's very hard. And
It's
there's a
impossible.
lot of injuries.
I'm interested in your work now. You know, you said from ages like 10
10 to 16.
16.
Yeah.
Okay. With, you know, understanding you're looking for an arched foot or whatever, is that still something you talk to young people about who are interested in ballet? How do you kind of broach the subject of like, your body is not, like, if you continue, you'll probably have problems because your body's not right for ballet?
It's really hard because personally, like someone said to me years ago, like 20 years ago, someone said to me, it's in our power to change the aesthetic, so we should. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. So to create better diversity of body shape, whatever that means, whether that means things around like hyperextension and arched feet, or whether it means not everyone being stick thin, or whether it means racial diversity, gender diversity, like all of those things, we do need to have a ballet world that reflects the real world better. Some people would argue that if they're not going to get a job, it's cruel to take them into a school. But then we have to put pressure on the industry to also change and not go with these kind of like old-fashioned ideas of what makes a good dancer. I just have hope that the industry is changing. And I think there are lots of companies that have diversity in their dancers, like body shape and all of those things. So, and with height as well, that's a big thing. I work with a company in France quite a lot, where every time I go there, I'm just bowled over by like how individual everyone is, but they all dance so beautifully. And that's what I wish for the wider industry, that it's, you know, that we have that. I would never say to a child, your feet aren't good enough, you don't have enough turnout. I would never. Because I don't feel it, you know? Like, if they don't have enough turnout, it's down to us to help them. To, you know, if that's something they're struggling with, down to us to help them manage it. If they need to find a bit more flexibility, we need to help them. If they are struggling to get on point because of the shape of the foot or the ankle or a restriction in the ankle, that's for us to figure out whether that's a mechanical issue. It's not an aesthetic issue, as far as I'm concerned. So it is very hard. And also, like, unconscious bias is a thing. I did grow up with that.
Knowing what the right shape looks like or whatever.
Striving for that. And I had it as well. So, you know, I'm constantly questioning myself. If I'm in an audition and I think, oh, this person's great, is it because they have the traditional body type? Is it because they're thin? Or is it because they're actually a good dancer? Like, I have to constantly question myself and I don't think that I have those biases, but then I know where I grew up.
How could you not, kind of thing?
Would you say the industry in general is resistant to change? And how is the current climate of the industry, like politically and diversity wise?
I think it's mixed. I think the industry as a whole has been resistant to change, but it's getting better. It's really getting better. I think sometimes people are so afraid to ask the questions that they just don't, and then nothing changes. I think sometimes people want to change and don't know how to do it. But also I have heard people in the industry say like, oh, well, this is classical ballet, so deal with it. You know, which is really hard because it's like, yeah, there are things like, I don't know, like traditionally in Swan Lake, you have to paint yourself white to match your tutu, be a swan. But like, as companies become more diverse, black dancers don't want to do that.
No.
Funnily enough.
Wild.
But yeah, to you, it's completely obvious. But there is resistance within management of some companies to having black women portray white swans and not paint themselves white. I really hope that it's changing. I know there was a big drama a few years ago about this. But some people go, well, everyone has to paint themselves white. That's Swan Lake. And it's like, but our understanding of things is changing. And the world is changing, and more dancers who fit a slightly different profile are becoming professional dancers because there's more opportunity at grassroots level, and people are making a huge effort to get young dancers who don't fit the like rich white, you know, profile, in thin profile into training. So that has to be, that the industry has to change to keep up with that. Yeah, I think sometimes there is resistance. There was an article that came out right at the beginning of lockdown. The timing was just unbelievable, about racism in ballet. And they chose to interview 3 white male directors about racism in ballet. And one of them said, do I want to see one black woman in a line of white swans? I don't know. It interrupts the line. This is like in 2020, you know? So
That is appalling.
it's ridiculous. I mean, the backlash was severe.
Good. Yeah.
We don't want to see one black woman. We want to see many different people in the line. We want to have a more diverse line. That's the point.
Yeah.
You know? So like, yeah, it has been a problem and continues to be, but I think people are much more aware of all these different problems that are deep rooted in ballet and in music, I can imagine.
You spoke about being like a jobbing dancer. I suppose that's like the equivalent of a freelance musician, that you sort of go around and just do whatever work comes up. I'm interested in like what the difference in like day-to-day experience is for somebody in like a company, which I guess is like being in an orchestra.
Yeah.
Like in terms of job security, particularly when speaking up about these kind of things, and like precariousness of work and livelihood. Is it really precarious as a jobbing dancer versus being in a company? Does being in a company like afford you sort of job protection and this kind of stuff?
Depends where you are in the world. I almost think that being a freelance dancer is more secure in a way, if you're a good one. You know, if you get the work. It's hard to be a freelance ballet dancer. Like it is. There's a few people who are doing it amazingly successfully, but you know, it's hard to do. But you don't have to deal with the politics of being in a company, and you're your own boss, which I think is quite important. People in companies are generally terrified to speak up for fear of losing their jobs. A lot of them are on 1-year contracts, and you could go at any time. And I mean, I've seen people be, you know, in Germany, they have to let you know in October. I mean, the season is August to July, and they have to let you know in October if you're not coming back their next season. Then you have to finish out the season knowing that they don't want you, which is, you know, and when there's a change of director, they usually get rid of half the company and bring their own people. So,
And that's allowed.
Yeah. Artistic vision. Yeah. So it's hard. Like people feel they can't speak up because it's so easy to get rid of them. It's changing. And again, like in Germany, they have really, really good rules around things like this. They have a working council who would like formally bring things up. But, you know, there's also, even if you're not fired, like maybe you don't get a role. Like I'm not saying it necessarily is like that, but if you're someone who's bringing up issues, you might just not, because you want to get your Snow Queen casting, and maybe you won't.
You could be in a company but not get cast.
Yeah.
Do you get paid still, or?
Yeah, you're paid all the time, but like as different productions come up, you'll just be cast differently in each production.
Sure.
Some companies have ranks and some don't. Most do, because ballet is very hierarchical. So you'd have the corps de ballet, which is the lowest rank. You might have some apprentices, which would be lower than the corps de ballet. And then you go through like soloist, first soloist, principal is the highest. And then in Paris, you have étoile, which is the higher than principal.
They're always a bit sexy in Paris, aren't they? You always have to go one step ahead.
Yeah, étoile is pretty great. Some companies don't have, like contemporary companies don't have ranks. But ballet companies, there are a few ballet companies that don't have them. But you're all paid all the time. And you do class every day, you rehearse all day. If you're a principal, you basically only do main parts. If you're a corps de ballet, you dance all the time. The girls do. But yeah, you there's always the thing of like, if a production comes back many times, are you casting the same thing as before? Have you been kind of like removed from a thing? Yeah.
And like costs of things, like who pays for, like, do you have a company physio? Who foots the bill for that? Shoes? Like, what are the costs of being a ballet dancer?
Yeah.
And what are the hidden costs of being one?
Well, shoes is a massive one.
Yeah.
And it's generally only women that dance on point, but you know, we're trying to change that as well. And a pair of point shoes costs like £50. Yeah. And you can break them in a day. So that's a huge cost for parents of dancing children, if they are children that dance on point, the parents pay for the shoes, and that's bad
And
luck.
how often do they need new shoes?
It depends on the brand of the shoe, on how much work they're doing. But I mean, in a company, I don't know how many you'd go through. Anything from like 2 a week to 1 a month. Like it depends on the brand and how arched your feet are, how well you take care of your shoes, what roles you're doing. Like for quarter ballet stuff, you're just constantly in your point shoes, so you wear them out so fast. But then the principal roles are harder, and you're up and down more. So that's a huge hidden cost. Physio, it just depends. If the company's got a lot of money, like the Royal Ballet has a whole health team that looks after the dancers all the time. The dancers are not paying for that. Some companies, they'll have a certain amount of physio appointments that the dancers can go to. We have, because we can't afford to subsidise it, we have a physio come in, so they use our space, but the kids' families pay for the appointment, which obviously is not the ideal way of doing it. We'd like to pay for it, but we just can't. We don't have that funding. So yeah, it depends. It's different. And obviously, dance wear, leotards, things like that, they're expensive. If you're in a company, you get your shoes paid for, but there might be a cap on how many you can have. Not in big companies, you just have a store. There's like these amazing shoe rooms in the big opera houses, and you just go and you have your little cubby hole and you just like take how many shoes you need. And then there'd be a physio there all the time. I broke my ankle when I was in Sweden, and I was immediately just like carried up to the physio. Yeah,
Broke your ankle?
Yeah, in a rehearsal. Yeah. It was kind of like the beginning of the end of my career. After that, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
No.
So yeah, there are hidden costs there. Also, like auditions are, I don't know if it's like that for music, but for us, like you have to fly to the place. Say you're doing an audition in Amsterdam. You have to get there. You have to stay a night in a hotel, but do the audition, which no one's given you any funding for. You might get cut after half an hour. And then once I went to Berlin, and the guy I didn't show up to watch the class. And the secretary just shrugged and said, well, you can come back tomorrow. So I got another night in a hotel, changed my flight. I went and did the class the next day, and he didn't show up. And I just had to go home. Yeah. So that is a big cost. When you're young, you're like 21 and you're trying to fly around Europe doing these auditions. It's really, really hard.
I mean, you have to do that. And like, I don't know, like in music, teachers would expect you to do that if you're still at college. And even afterwards, people are like, why are you not auditioning?
Yeah. Why don't you go and play to this person in
Stockholm?
You're sort of just expected to like
Foot the bill.
Just hop on a plane and go and
stay the night.
Pay
for food, pay for the lessons.
And this is why things don't change. This is why the industry doesn't get truly diverse, because there's only one kind of person that can afford to do this.
Well, exactly. I want to know about like choosing to retire from dancing, and we haven't really spoken about performing. Like, would you say you were someone who really like came alive on stage? Like, did you love performing?
Yeah, I did.
What's the situation with, say, loving performing but knowing traditionally you need to retire? You know, where are you at sort of mentally with performing and
I'm absolutely fine.
Not performing.
Yeah, a lot of people really struggle with it. And it was hard, but it was one of those decisions I was like, oh, I'm ready. That's it. And then, full disclosure, I got fired from Sweden as well, because in the Scandinavian countries, you do 3 single-year contracts, and then they decide whether to give you a permanent contract. And a permanent contract is until you're 41 or 42. And within that permanent contract, you can leave for 3 years and do something else and come back to your job. So people go and dance in other companies just for the experience, and then come back to their job in Stockholm, Oslo. So they have to decide whether to give you that or let you go. And he let me go. I'd broken my ankle. My heart wasn't in it anymore. And then he said, go back to London and get married. And I was like, I think I'm going to go back to London and have a career.
Yeah.
I know it's scandalous that I'm 30 and I'm not married, but
also, you could leave for 3 years in the middle of a permanent contract and do something else.
So, yeah, I mean, all that to say, I got to a point where I was really struggling with my body. My body was changing as well, as it does around 29, 30. I was in Stockholm, which I didn't really enjoy, didn't really love living there. I was about to turn 30. I was struggling with my body and with injuries, and the way the company was structured at that time, I wasn't getting many opportunities either. So I was kind of like hanging around in pain, having to work really, really, really hard. It was fine. And I was happy to be up there doing my like tiny little role. I was like, I think I've got more to offer than this. And now I've done it. Like the thing was, I did it. I got a good 6 years of performing in professional companies after that like terrible start. And I had some really amazing experiences. And I was just like, you know what? I'm ready. I need to go home. So I went back to London. My last performance was sad, but only because it was a big change, not because I'm never going to perform again. That was okay. But there's this phrase that gets thrown around in the dance industry, which is ballet dancers die twice. And I don't really agree with that, but I get it. Like, as in you die when you leave the stage and then you really die.
Oh, sorry. I'm being dense. I assumed you died when you left the stage and that was the only death.
Yeah. You wait for your real one, but like that's the first one. Yeah.
I think a lot of musicians struggle to retire because a lot of their networks have just like all their friends are musicians and all their like support networks of musicians, and like stepping away from their instrument, be it permanently or just professionally, feels like they're stepping away from more than just the job. Is that the same in ballet?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's so insular. I'm really lucky that I went to university, but if you've been with the same people since you're 11 and then you've gone into a company at 19 without the buffer of university, where people are like stupid and they experiment and they find out who they are, you know, like that was when I went to university. I was like, oh my God, a lot of people who are really different.
Yeah.
This is great. Having been in an environment where everyone was exactly the same as me for 7 years, that was like completely transformational for me. But most ballet dancers don't get that. And so they've been in this really insular world. They have the same kind of structure in their lives. They go in the morning, they have someone tell them what to do. They go and like bitch with their friends about the teacher. You know, like it's very that. And then suddenly they're 40 and they're like, well, what now? I have to give up this life that I've had since I was 11. So I think that's really hard. And I think a lot of people stay in it for that reason, like as teachers, or lots of ballet dancers stay with their company as a rehearsal director, as a physio. In Düsseldorf, there was a stage manager who was a dancer in the company before. I can imagine that that's quite a thing with musicians. But do musicians stay in their networks in different roles?
It's quite rare for a musician to declare that they've retired.
A lot of people say they're retiring and then just like never do. Like they still work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different if you're in an orchestra and you have like a retirement age that you have to leave. Some orchestras, it's like 60.
I didn't know that.
62 or so. But then often they'll just go and do little chamber concerts somewhere, or still freelance. That's the other thing, though. It just continue.
But
I think that's the tragedy of ballet, that you have to stop. You can't go to 60 something. Your body just won't manage.
So you can't just stop working it,
and you can't just retire. So it's very hard.
Yeah.
But does that mean then that there are dancers who become teachers who aren't good teachers?
Yeah. Lots.
Same. What do you see now as your role, like as a artistic director?
Yeah.
Did you kind of see that I have a skill for, leadership?
No.
Okay.
No. Because like dancers don't really talk. And by nature, I'm a real introvert. I'm very, very shy. And like anyone that went to school with me would know that like, I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I was a real geek, like, which I wear with pride. That's absolutely fine. But, I wouldn't have imagined that this would be the role that I would end up in. I think, again, to go back to my teacher, Renato, at one point he just looked at me and said, you should cover my classes. Like, I'm away on Friday, cover my class. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And he said, you don't even have to speak. You're so clear with your body. It's fine. And he understood what my reservation was. And so I did it. And I did it kind of badly for a while because I was so afraid to talk in a room full of people. Mm-hmm. But by doing it, I developed a voice and was able to hold a room. that was a really good skill to learn. And I started to learn that I was good at it. And then when I stopped dancing, started to get into a bit of rehearsal directing, which is the same. Like, you have to hold the room, you have to manage people's emotions, you have to notice what's going on, you've got to time the thing right, you've got to make sure everything gets done. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. And people started to say to me that they thought I was doing a good job, where I just did some like freelance things, rehearsal directing. And I remember a choreographer said to me, you know, you've got a quiet power in the room. I got scouted for this job in Dusseldorf, which wasn't, you know, it wasn't a director role, but it was a rehearsal director role where you're in charge a lot. You're in charge of the room, you're in charge of the casting, you're constantly going between the director and the dancers, you're caught in the middle of everything. It's the hardest role there is in a ballet company. And you're constantly managing people. And you're also like upholding decisions from above that you might not always agree with. And there I started to go like, maybe I want to be a director and not a rehearsal director. And actually my director there was very supportive of me. And he would just go, you know, you've got to go and be a director somewhere. He was really great. He said to me once, you know, I've heard how you talk to people in the rehearsal room, and I know that you've worked for years and years on that. And it's really clear, and I think you're really talented, and I think you should be a director. I got an offer to be the director of the National Youth Ballet. They put on a performance season in the summer. They gather 100 young people and do new works at Sadler's Wells. And I'd been involved in it as a choreographer in the past, and they were looking for someone to take care of the performance company as artistic director, and they approached me. And I was like, okay, that seems like a great next step. So I kind of like got into it accidentally. And then the NYB thing, I noticed as soon as I started having to talk to 100 people in a room that the Dusseldorf experience had changed me because of having to deal with dancers constantly in the middle of a pandemic in Germany, when some of them had moved across the world to be there with the new director. Like, it was a very stressful time, and I had to just deal with that. I never thought I'd be the director of a school. I thought that my next thing would be director of a company, but then this London Vocational Ballet School job came up, and I'd been doing some freelance work there, and it just felt like the right fit. But because I'm a quiet person, I never really thought that I would get into leadership. But actually, the more I do it, the more I realize how important it is to have quiet leaders that are approachable. I mean, a lot of the feedback I've had is that people really appreciate I listen to them, but I can also make a strong decision that might not take what they've said into account. Like, it might not be the decision they want, but I've heard them and I've considered everything. So don't know if that answers your question, but it's not where I necessarily saw myself, but it feels obvious now that I'm there. But yeah, I think quiet leaders are important, and female leaders and queer leaders, and you know, I think it's all important.
We should probably think about wrapping up, but I also had one more question about, like, it seems that because kind of unlike music, where in music, once you leave music college, you're basically, unless you get a job, you're on your own. You have to just do your own thing and sort of evaluate your own practice and motivate yourself and direct yourself and everything.
Yeah.
In ballet, it almost sounds like you're almost always at the whim of somebody else's opinion.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you ever evolve like a sense of personal identity, like opinion about your work, or like self-assuredness where you're not always waiting for some direction. Is that a thing that people struggle with? Or
Yeah, it's very, very, very hard. And I think it's harder for the women than the men, because they're often dancing in a large group. They've got the added thing of the point shoes and the, you know, all these added expectations. They're often like not allowed to be as messy as the men in lots of different ways, which is, you know, I'm saying that from my own experience and from third-hand experiences as well. And like I said, the fact that your job can go at any moment, it's very much whether someone likes you or they don't. And something I think is interesting is, I don't know if there's a parallel in music, but you see across different companies, you see a very clear type. So like in this company, they're all small and blonde. In that company, they all kind of have this gothic look about them. In that company, they're all really tall and powerful, you know? So it's like, it's just where that, like, you're so powerless. If someone doesn't like small dancers or tall dancers or blonde dancers, or, you know, like, and it might not even be a conscious thing that they're making those choices, but they are making those choices because that's the makeup of the company. So yeah, there is a helplessness to that. I think, I mean, I'm certainly at school, like, trying to encourage dancers to have their own opinion, to self-evaluate, to speak up, to have their boundaries. But it's really hard because everything is so, because it's a visual art, people are judging you constantly. We're, you know, I don't want to say judging, but we're constantly assessing, and that's hard. So yeah, that is a very hard thing to do. Sometimes I think the way it manifests in ballet companies is the, like, bitching, because they can't,
they, like, take control of a situation.
yeah, they can't bring it up. Sometimes they can, and I've heard of some really good situations in the studio where, particularly like the Gen Z kind of age group, will be like, I didn't like that, don't talk to me like that again. Like, I've heard a few instances of that where that has been taken well from a director, but people have to be very brave.
Sounds very countercultural.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's happening. It's sometimes people get it wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, like, I'm not wearing that costume, and it's like, well, you have to, it's the costume. It's not that you're not being exposed, you're not uncomfortable, you just don't like it. And, like, sometimes people kind of try to use their voice in a way that is inappropriate. But, like, we're trying
And learning. Like, you'll always get things wrong when you're going against the grain. And I think people wait way too long and often completely just never say anything because they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this in the perfect way that's going to get across.
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens is people leave the industry. They don't feel they can speak up, so they leave, which is hard because I think we've lost a lot of great artists because they felt like they don't fit in. There isn't a place for them. They can't speak up about how they really feel. A friend who recently retired from dancing, who I would have long conversations with him about, like, the industry and what needs to change. And while he was still dancing, I would say, you've got to be a director. You'd be amazing. And he'd just say, I'm getting away from this. As soon as I stop, I'm going to do something else. So that I think is a bit of a problem.
It's like either I'll like conform and do it the way it's done, or I leave.
But then it's obviously a shame because then you're left with an industry of people conforming and then nothing changes. But obviously, like, the work that you're doing is like sowing those seeds and just like at the perfect time. I think like 10 to 16 is just such a important time to be working with people to make sure they get the education, like a new education, in a way that's hopefully going to shape the industry for the better.
I hope so. I mean, they're great students, and I've had a guest choreographer in this week, and he's kind of commented on like the students seem really comfortable talking to the teachers, and he was saying, when I was at school, the director wouldn't have talked to a child like that, like so personable and like friendly, and the child wouldn't have felt comfortable to be like, I'm upset about something and I need to talk to you, like. So that is really nice, and they're also quite good with them. Like, we have lots of choreographers come in and work with them and do creative stuff, and they just like get up and improvise like it's nothing, which we wouldn't have been able to do. And I'm so proud of them. Like, it's so good. What I hope and wish is that they then put pressure on the industry, that they take that into the industry with confidence, and that if they encounter a place that hasn't really changed, that they know what's right and they can stand up for it. It's my wish.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so beautiful to talk with you. Should we do win of the week? So we end all of our episodes with a win of the week.
Nice.
Something small, something recent-ish. I haven't thought of mine yet. Do you have one?
Yes. I got my cello bow rehaired yesterday, which it usually has to be done every 6 months if you play, but I haven't played for a long time. So last time I got mine rehaired was 5.5 years ago. So I took it to the shop, and all the emotions around like getting it rehaired were so weird. And like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like it marked like a new era of curiosity around it again, which I think is, it feels nice, because I've booked in rehairs across the last few years, but I've never actually followed through with them. But this time I did, and it was just, I felt like a real win.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's Amazing.
Louise, do you have anything?
Can it be something medical?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I have like a thyroid problem, and I found out that I'm in remission from my thyroid disease. So yeah, that's.
I didn't know you could get into remission for thyroid disease.
Yeah, well, that's the word that they use. So I was like, okay,
That's
that
fantastic.
sounds great. I was very, very sick for a while, and I've been taking medication for about 8 months, and now they're like, yeah, you're getting better now.
You don't have to take the medication anymore.
I can take a very low dose now.
Great.
So yeah, I feel so much better.
Oh my God.
amazing.
Yay.
Yeah, so that was my win. I
That's a
think.
serious win.
Yeah.
What about you? Telebos, thyroids, anything?
Been a bit bored recently, like
Mm.
just a bit listless and a bit kind of.
I think I gave it to you.
Yeah, I was I haven't had any work since the 7th of Jan. And my next work is like the 4th of March. Like I'm just in this complete
Whoa.
dead zone where I just kind of can't be bothered to play. It feels like COVID again, kind of. But I'm having a really nice time the rest of my life. Anyway, it was yesterday. I just did like a few sort of creative things to get me out of that slump. I did a bit of journaling, went to a gig, like reached out to somebody about like a sit-in for a show. Just things that I was like, okay, no, there is some movement in this, like, I've been feeling so stagnant. I just did some things, but it didn't matter. It was just something. So, yeah.
Starting is always the hardest part.
Exactly.
It's quite a lot of things in one day, actually.
Yeah, it was actually a bit much. Spread them out.
Well, Louise, thank you so much. This has
Pleasure.
been just fantastic. And if people want to kind of follow you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, louise.bennett, with 2 N's and 2 T's. But also please give the school a follow, LV Ballet School, but on Instagram. And we are LV Ballet School. There's lots of cool things there, lovely children doing joyful things, and we always want support. So if you have the means, please consider giving us some donation or anything that you can give us just to help these amazing young people.
Is there any like events or anything coming up that we could plug or anything that people could come watch?
We have our summer performances, the 29th of June at Sadler's Wells in the Lillian Baylis. We're going to the main stage at Move It. We'll just have a little piece there on the 21st of March. But we have our summer shows at the Lillian Baylis on the 29th of June, which will be kind of a mixed bill of lots of different things. Choreography by me, our guest choreographers, all our teachers. And last year it was a very emotional, lovely affair. And we also say goodbye to our year 11s there. So it's, it's lovely. So that will be on all of our social media and on the Sadler's Wells website soon.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.